good day, everyone. Welcome to our session for today, Seeds of Success, Adapting to a Shifting Funding Landscape and Impact Incubation. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you're having a great day so far. We're just waiting for others to come in, but maybe while we do, if I can ask everybody to please rename themselves with their organization to the right so that we know who's in the room. So just like myself and Liz, we can have your organizations to the right of your name, just so that we know where you're, which organization you're coming from. We can address you properly as well. Thank you so much. Great to see everybody coming in early. Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for renaming yourselves with your organization to the right. People to the room. I hope you all are having a wonderful day here in the Philippines so far. It's been a weird couple of days. It's technically our hot and humid season, kind of like a summer. And the past few days have been cloudy and rainy. So it's a little bit of a respite, right, from the hot weather, but at the same time, just a weird month for it to happen. Definitely proof of climate change, but I hope everybody else has had a wonderful day so far. Right, great, awesome. All right. So again, we welcome you to Seeds of Success, adapting to a shifting funding landscape and impact incubation. We know that, the past few months, especially at the start of this year, has been a trying time, to say the least, for a lot of organizations who work within the impact industry because of certain pullouts or changes in the way that both development aid and other kinds of funding have been changing. And we see how much it's resonated with not just the membership of the network, but also in the broader ecosystem. And it's really also reflected with the registrations and interest for this session. So we're glad to have three different yet very complementary perspectives to join us today. So a member of the network, an ecosystem funder, and then a strategic fundraising consultant as well, to help us kind of understand how their experiences are, maybe some tips on their end, and also what they're seeing moving forward, right, from how it's currently been. So, to get us started for today, I'd like to take a moment for us to introduce Pollinate and also myself. So, Aditi, if we can please bring up our slide just to have a quick introduction to what we do. So much. All right. So hi again, everyone. If you're not a member yet of Pollinate Impact, this is your sign to join our buzzing network. We're a member-led network of impact incubators and accelerators and ESOs across the global south, sharing tools, funding opportunities, and even real talk with each other and with other stakeholders in the room. As a member, you'll get funding opportunities straight to your inbox, proposal support through office hours with our partner Assist, Asia, access to tools and shared resources, and most importantly, really good and deep connections to peers who get it. And by it, I mean challenges, solutions, opportunities, all of that. And if you're already a member, you can also refer someone and get 10% off your next annual membership fee. So it's a win-win. So the link and the QR code are right on your screen, so you can go ahead and check it out. All right. And then we'll move to our upcoming events for the next few weeks. So here's what's coming up in our Pollinate calendar. And whether you're already a member or, just getting to know us, there's really something for you here. First, I'd like to focus on our June 3rd Pollinate Pathways, which is our launch of our new peer mentoring program with the Human Edge, who is also a partner of the network. I think Kat is here today. Thanks for joining us, Kat. And This info session is really open to everyone, and it's all about building a peer-led community of practice across ESOs. We want to help build the mentoring capacity of organizational staff within incubators and accelerators throughout the global South, and this is a way for us to do that. So we hope you can join us for that to learn more about the peer mentoring program. And then the next two sessions are members only, the ones with the asterisk, if you see the star. So if you're not yet part of the network, this is a great time to join or apply for membership. On the 29th of May, we have Roots to Results, which will walk you through how to make your data and impact stories speak louder and clearer to different stakeholders, including funders and investors, as well as entrepreneurs. On June 11th, we have Seeds of Success back with Assist Asia. Joshua's here today joining us, and they will be back on June 11th to help us turn partnership strategies into real action with funders, investors, and allies, whomever you consider a partner. And then this year as well, we're going regional for our Pollinate potlucks. So after our big global potluck last year in Bangalore, December 2024, we're focusing on each region's unique context. So incubators can come together to tackle the challenges that matter most to them, especially in a regional context. So on July 1st to 3rd, we have our Sub-Saharan Africa regional convening in Nairobi. So any of our African incubators and accelerators in the room, tickets are coming very soon. We will launch our registration form sometime either next week or early the week after. So please stay tuned for that. August 12th to 14th, we will have our Southeast Asia regional convening in Bangkok. And then November this year, we're also planning our South Asia potluck in India. The sign up links for our convenings for May and June are already either in your inbox if you're part of our newsletter or the WhatsApp group for our members. And if you're not a member yet, we'd love to welcome you to the Pollinate family. So that's it for the intro. I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Rod. I am the community choreographer of Pollinate Impact. I'm based in Manila, Philippines, and I'm really glad to be here with all of you today. All right, so that was our quick intro and spiel for the network. Now let me take us through our check-in for today. So I know a lot of us have joined sessions in the past and we've used Menti, but today we're trying something new just for a little bit of a change. We're trying out Mural for today, and to help us get, because we're going to be using it, spoiler alert, at the end of the session after we get some insights from our speakers. So to try it out, we will try our check-in here in the Mural board already. And it's really just two simple questions, and it might just help us get familiar with the platform. So I think Aditi will be sharing the link down below in a few. There we go. If you see the Pollinate Impact chat, you can join us here at the Mural board, and then we can start on the left side of the screen. So just to kind of quickly orient people to the Mural board, on your corner right of your screen, you have move mode and navigation settings. So move mode is when you need to kind of move your screen with your mouse and so that it doesn't move any of the other elements. And then once you have where you want to go, for example, you can use your navigation settings and then, sorry, not navigation. You just remove your move mode and then you can click on a post-it or the map, right? Okay, I see some people already here. Great. All right, so for our first question for today, we just want to know which country or city you're joining us from, and we have this beautiful map here um, to help you locate yourself. So it's also a quick geography quiz, right? Where are you in this part of the world? I have an example. I'm here on this end in Manila. If you want to put your name on it too, you can, and where your city is from, that'll be great. So you can use these post-its, you can copy and paste it just so that everybody has their copy there. No worries, we're all trying to get to know it. So if there are little kinks, don't worry about it. So you can quickly copy and paste, right? So that we can leave the post-its on the top of the screen. more. Just have it. Awesome. Thank you everyone for putting yourself here. I see some quick dots in the India side of the world. I see one on South Africa, the UK. See that? Awesome. My only gripe with this like map is the islands are not accurately captured. It's fine. I know where the Philippines is here, but yeah. So for my fellow islanders on this call, I'm sorry that our part of the world is kind of uh distorted a bit, but you can put it near where you know your country is. So we can do that. Oh, there's a move of the map. Let me just quickly fix it. Here you go. No worries. I know it's a little bit of a struggle, boss. Now just trying to make sure I will send this to the back so that we can see everyone's posted. There we go. Let me lock it real quick. There we go. So that the map doesn't move. Great. So I think we have Kenya. Again, the UK is there. Great. Vietnam. And then some from India. Great. Awesome. We're getting to know the platform, so no worries at all. For those who've just joined us, you can go to the link, or if you have no access, for example, if you're not on your computer today, please feel free to put it on the chat which city or country you're from so that you can join us in the conversation. That is totally fine. Okay, while we're working on that, um, on the countries, if you are done on filling that up, the last one for our check-in for today is what best describes your organization. So we have a few buckets here. You just take one of the post-its and then you just put it on which of these buckets you feel you are best describes you. So like what I did, Pollinate Impact is a membership network organization. So I put Pollinate over there. You can put if it's an other, you can define it and then put your organization. Um, Please fill up your post-it with your organization names so that we know uh, which one you are. And again, for those who are having a little trouble with Mural, you can use the chat just like Anik and Gerald here. Anik from Benin, welcome. Gerald from Nairobi. Awesome to see you all on the chat as well. If you want to tell us more about your organization in the chat, that'll also be great. So Human Edge is here. Any F. We have a few incubators and accelerators in the room as well. Awesome, welcome. Great. So it seems we have quite a bit of incubators and accelerators in the room. Ongiwe, hi. Emerge Livelihood. Girish from Goa. From Build 3, welcome. Forbes from Rosa Care. From Zimbabwe, welcome to the call. Hi, Nikita from Argidius. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for trying out and being patient with the mural. I know it's a little bit of a learning curve. So I hope the check-in gives us a little bit of a taste of how it's how it works and how we're going to use it for today. So I will stop share for now, but if you still want to fill it out, no worries at all. Jacob from Next Philippines, New Energy Nexus, welcome. Gerald is also here. Julius, hi, nice to see you, Julius from New Energy Nexus Uganda. So we have a really good mix of people here in the group. All right. So thank you again for joining us for that quick check-in. We will get started by introducing our wonderful set of guest speakers for today, sharing their experiences of the shifting funding landscape right now in the impact incubation industry, and then sharing with us their insights and their learnings from how it's been happening. But before all that, of course, we'd like them to introduce themselves, their name, where they're from, their work, what do they do, and then, as always, in the Pollinate style, we like to ask a fun question. So for today, our fun question is around um, what was a recent shift in uh what current shifts in your non-work life did you recently take that have been impactful to your quality of life? So just to repeat it, what current shifts in your non-work life did you recently take that have been impactful to your quality of life? So I will start with Liz and then I'll pass it on to Solomon and then Joshua to close us off. So Liz.
Thanks so much, Rod, and hello to everyone. Such a pleasure to be here, and so grateful to Pollinate Impact for having this conversation at such a critical moment. My name's Liz Wilson. I'm the Deputy CEO at Small Foundation. We're an Irish philanthropic foundation, and our mission is to serve rural impacting SMEs across the African continent in different ways. So really excited to be learning from you all today in this conversation. I mean, it's so hard to get the balance right in terms of making those shifts. So I love the question that you've put to us, Rod. I guess for myself, it maybe sounds like a little bit of a British thing, but I'm very into gardening at the moment. I'm really trying to get out into nature, embrace the green, and there's a little bit of colour coming through in the British springtime here. So that's something I'm trying to commit to getting out into green spaces every day. So thanks
Awesome.
so
That
much.
sounds great. Thank you so much, Liz. Gardening and like surrounding yourself with greens really helps be more mindful and relaxed, right? Especially in the current situation we're in. I think that's a really great shift to make. So thank you so much. Solomon, over to you.
Thank you, Rod, and good to see you again, Liz. Yeah, my name is Solomon. I work with Reach for Change. I've been with Reach for Change for 9 years, and I recently transitioned as a country manager, overseeing our operations in Ghana into an advisory role. So I work now with a global team. I am based in England, and I work with the various country managers where Reach for Change operates, specifically providing support and advisory on projects that are being implemented. I lately have started doing quite a bit of walk. I used not to walk a lot, but I've just realized that this is something I quite enjoy. And it's quite easy for me to do here in England, where I'm based now, as opposed to in my previous role, where I also used to travel a lot, and it was always difficult to schedule some of these personal things. But yeah, walking around and enjoying nature, just like Liz mentioned, has been fun and a good motivator. So I look forward to it every morning when I wake up. Yeah, thank
Great,
you.
awesome. Thanks, Solomon. Walks are always really good. Like it's it's exercise, but it doesn't feel like exercise most of the time, right? Especially if you have a good surrounding, if there's green. So definitely a great shift. Thank you so much. And last but not the least, we have Joshua from Assist Asia.
Hello everyone, and it's always a pleasure to to meet up and provide support to Pollinate Impact. So I'm Joshua Pineda, the research and acquisitions lead from Assist Asia. We are a pan-Asia nonprofit organization based in the Philippines, but we operate in a lot of Southeast Asian countries as well. And we have been providing research support, funding opportunities, research support to Pollinate Impact, I think since 2 to 3 years already within our partnership. Yeah, so maybe a bit later I can tell you more about it as well. The recent shift that I think in my life that I've been doing, I actually started to become more serious in working out. So I think the last time I met Rod, I'm big. I'm a bit bigger back then. So it's actually really working out, and it's really improve the way that I lived as well. It's easier for me to walk now and to meet up with people. So yeah, the only downside is I have to change. I have to buy a new change of clothes a lot. So yeah,
An excuse to update the
I think that's
wardrobe.
it from my end. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Happy for you, Joshua. Same here. That's been a recent shift of mine to really try to dedicate more time for like physical activity. Full disclosure, Joshua and I live in the same building, so sometimes we do get to see each other, and it's great to see more you know, physical activity for us here. And where we live, there's actually a lot of green spaces, so it's awesome to also walk around. There we go. We got to introduce our speakers for today, and now we'll transition to them sharing their experiences and their insights on recent shift in the funding landscape. So their own experiences as the organization. So again, as a member of the network, as a funder, and then as a strategic consultant that works on fundraising strategies. So we will start with Solomon as he is a member of the Pollinate Impact Network. And then we will go on to Joshua, and then we'll end with Liz to close us off for the sharing. After that, we will have a dialogue space for the three speakers to give us more insights on what they've been seeing overall. Then we'll open it up to Q&A for everybody in the room. So if you have questions in mind, you can also chat it, or please excuse me. Later on, we'll have Q&A where you can ask your question. And then after that, we will have some reflection questions and strategy exchanges over the mural if you've seen the right side of the screen. All right, so to get us started for today, I am very honored to welcome Solomon, Reach for Change, to give us his story and his experience the past few months. Yeah, Solomon, please take the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Rod. Welcome, everybody. This is interesting because our story started 8 years ago and not just the past few months, I must say. And I don't know whether to start with the phrase fortunately or unfortunately. But maybe fortunately because we've had the benefit of having to deal with this much earlier than some of our colleague members. So through this, we've learned. It's unfortunate I have only 10 minutes, so I can't say much, but I'll try and do my best to paint a better picture as to how our funding landscape shifted and how we adapted in terms of our response. So I joined Reach for Change in 2016, and just a year down the line in 2017, we experienced a major turning point when one of our key corporate partners signaled their exits from our funding portfolio. And as you can imagine, this partner was not just a funder. They had been a long-term collaborator in our social enterprise initiative. So their exits represented not just loss of funds, if I can put it that way. It was more of a disruption to a strategic relationship that we had. This was an organization that was supporting us with a minimum of $1 million annually. And so for my country operations at the time, getting 1 million every year for 5 years continuous was great. And that at the time represented about 30 to 40% of our annual revenue. as an organization. And so losing that partner was a big deal. This was a telecom organization that was operating across Africa and Latin America. And because it's a corporate organization, as you can expect, it got to a point where they felt like they also needed to transition. Just as human beings go through phases, businesses also go through that. And so a decision had been taken at the board level that they should merge in some countries and also divest their interest in other countries and sell off to other competitors or other partners who were interested in taking over their business. And so these mergers and acquisitions that happened to this telco overnight then resulted in the new entities that had taken over this telecoms operation, telling us that, well, our CSR agenda is not in line with your programs that you've been running over the past 5 years. And so this millions of dollars that we've been giving to you every year, we are sorry. We are cutting it off from 2018. I had just joined this organization, and overnight, it felt like the earth beneath me was just being drawn away. You know, it had a serious ripple effects on us. We had to pause and scale down on some of our projects. There was a heavy impact on staff. Some of our offices in the country and other parts of the region had to be closed down, some temporarily, some permanently. And of course, as you can expect, it then also led to some huge deficits in our budgets that needed to be plugged. So this was really, really tough. So we had to ensure that rather than go into a survival mode, we turn inward first of all and turn to the team to co-create a response to this issue, because staff was being impacted in terms of salaries, in terms of staff progression, in terms of job security, and what have you. And then, of course, all our commitments that we had elected to undertake also had to be revised. So we needed to have a broader discussion to understand where we were going and what needed to change. And I was grateful for my other colleagues in other regions where Reach for Change operated, coming together to brainstorm and provide some ideas and solutions. And so the way we responded to this challenge was to have a short-term approach and some mid-term approach. What did we do in the short term? When we started off back in 2010 in Ghana, Reach for Change was a branch of the head office that is located in Sweden. And so it was easy for the head office to engage and sometimes pipe funding to us in Ghana. That was actually the structure we were operating. And this telecom organization I'm talking about was also based in Ghana. But because it also had Swedish origins, the headquarters in Sweden had been able to do this fundraising arrangement to make sure that we're receiving this amount of money every year. And so again, what came through in terms of advice was that let's consider registering Reach for Change as a local entity in Ghana. So that it's not just a branch of a foreign entity, but it's a wholly owned local organization with some, of course, relationship and linkage to the Swedish entity. So that was one thing we did. And doing that allowed us to then locally fundraise to support our operations in country. We also had to quickly leverage on some of our strengths and traction that we had achieved over the years to form a consortium with other partners in the ecosystem that we knew were also doing well and had some foot in the door of other funders, just so we can co-create programs together and jointly fundraise to implement projects together so that parts of those revenues could also accrue to Reach for Change. So that's something that we did. And then based on our registration as a local entity, we then also decided to go into some service agreements and consultancy. That's sort of helped us plug in some of our budget deficits in the short term. So when it came to the consultancy, we had to leverage on some of the things we did well. So for instance, we're offering impact as a service. Reach for Change has quite a rigorous impact measurement system in place, and we're quite heavy on social impacts because we do support social enterprises. And so we realized that across the Africa region, there were other organizations implementing projects that were in line with our mission and vision, yet some of them did not have some rigorous impact measurement and management systems in place. And so we then decided to support them on impact management on their specific projects. And so we're billing them for the impact side of things. Again, we're also quite heavy on impact communications. So we're rendering communication as a service where other enterprise support organizations and other institutions were now relying on us to design the comms piece around their projects because they had a comms budget, but they were not doing it in a way that was also telling the impactful stories that they were, or the impacts that they were making. And so those were some of the consultancy services we decided to fall on to support us. But in the midterm, we realized quickly that we needed to pivot and restructure. And so that is when within the country and within the Africa region, we had a full-fledged fundraising and partnership department where their work was to specifically support in raising funds for our operations. So for us at the time as country managers, we were also finding leads, cultivating relationships, and passing these relationships on to the fundraising team for them to then take over and convert these cultivated relationships into actual partnerships that led to inflows of funding for us. We had to also diversify our funding pipeline and reduce our overdependence on CSR cycles because we were a major CSR partner for most organizations. And we realized that at the corporate side, once these business decisions are taken to either merge or acquire or go into joint ventureship and things, it can impact on our plans. And so with this diversification approach, we are now at a place where we also benefit from donor and institutional funding, funding from consulting services and not just from corporates and foundations. We also needed to embark a little bit on value reframing. So as an organization, our vision at the time, and it still is, looking at a world where every child realizes his or her full potential. And so we were focusing on entrepreneurs who only supported children in one way or the other. So either in the education space, food and nutrition, health, etc., etc. But we realized increasingly that we cannot swim where the sharks swim. I mean, you have the UNICEFs, you have the Save the Children's and things, and we needed to acknowledge that some of these organizations were bigger than us. But we're in the business of entrepreneurship, so why only scale it down to entrepreneurs serving the interests and needs of children? So we then had to change, our value proposition and reposition, and also not just see ourselves as an incubator, but actually as an enterprise support organization. So we're not only running incubation programs, but we saw the need to support other incubators to also step up their game. So that's how come we went into ecosystem business, and that has also been a game changer for us. So organizing annual convenings, supporting other hubs and impact incubators, not only in Africa, but also in Europe, where we have operations. And then, of course, strategic alliances, where we have had to lean into collaborative fundraising and program delivery with other local and regional partners. So we don't have offices in Zimbabwe, for instance, but the organizations in the Southern African region, for instance, in Tanzania, where we collaborate to raise funds and jointly implement across multiple countries. The highlight of all of this, by Q1 of 2018, we had onboarded 2 new partners as a result of some of these short-term measures that we took. So we had the World Bank coming on board to support us on a climate change related project that went on for 2 years. We had a service contract with the German Development Corporation that's also ran for 4 years. So in the short term, the steps we took, especially registering as a local entity, was what opened these doors to the World Bank and to the German Development Corporation. So there was some value in that short-term measure we took. And in the long term, the mid to long term, we have considerably diversified our funding portfolio and brought on board a few other partners. I'll wrap up soon, in a minute. I think in all of this, the key lessons for us, which I would also use to advise members, is that we've learned that it's not the best to build your house on one foundation. No matter how strong a funding relationship seems, resilience would always come from diversification. So it's important that you start cultivating future funders, even when you don't need them yet. It's something you need to avert your minds to. And we also realize that sometimes crises help reveal your true assets, right? So when the money was uncertain, what sustained us was our people and our reputation and our track record. We had to leverage on that to open other doors, to form consortia, or join other consortium members to operate. And finally, honesty about this is also very, very important. So we had to gain trust and not lose it. So what did we do? We're transparent with our partners, other partners that we had, that because of this challenge, we needed to rethink and analyze and review some existing programs and stuff like that. And they all came in to actually support and provide some guidance on how to progress. So that's how we survived. And I'm going to pass on to the rest of my colleagues so that they can walk us through what is happening currently. Thank you.
Thanks, Solomon. That was really great. And I've learned a lot from, I know that Reach for Change really had like this, unfortunate time, right? And really had to go through such a big change in such a short amount of time because of what happened. And I'm just so glad to hear how you've navigated this tricky situation and really thinking about it at the short, mid, and long term vision for the organization, and seeing it really thrive now is something that I'm really happy to see, and I'm really happy to hear. And now it could be uh, a helpful lesson for those here in the room, right, in terms of the organizations, because really funding is not always certain and it's not going to be there forever. So having this at the back of their head could really be a helpful thing moving forward. Thank you. I will pass it on to Joshua now, our fundraising strategy consultant, who will take us through maybe what does the landscape look like now, and maybe what we can leverage as impact incubators and organizations within the ecosystem to maybe turn these challenges into opportunities, right? So also curious to hear more about that. So Joshua, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Good day, everyone. So I think it's a very enriching topic earlier. I also learned a lot from Solomon, and it's actually quite surprising because also Assist as well has been struggling in the past few months with the current change in the funding ecosystem. And maybe this is where during this talk, I can also provide insight not only as a fundraising consultant group, but also as a nonprofit that actively works within the development sector itself. Currently, as a research lead, we have been looking at opportunities. Just to give everyone context, we have a very dedicated team who looks into funding opportunities on a weekly basis. So we used to see 20 to 30 opportunities per week. That's just, based on the criteria of Assist itself. And but we also don't include some of the geographic or like the thematic area limitations that our organization has. But that's the main reason why we provided the research consultancy as a service, because of our capacity to provide research support to some of our partners. In the past few months, we have seen a big shift within the funding ecosystem, from globalization to deglobalization. Economic forces has been shifting funding strategies by different countries, most of our funders is either multilateral and bilateral. So we do understand that there will be changes in funding priorities and funding and thematic areas that they want to focus on. And but we have to understand that change has always been happening every year. Even in, I think if we go back to the pandemic 2020, it's also a big what you call this is a big change in terms of the funding ecosystem, wherein we saw that there is a lot of increase in health related funding opportunities, as well as an increase in development of digitization and digital development as well, to address the economic fees of the pandemic. And currently what we see in 2025, that despite the change brought about by the tariffs, by US funding freeze, as well as the changing priorities of some of other countries in the European Union as well. There are few sectors that thrive or are still being prioritized in the next few years, particularly digital technology, including AI integration, has been a big topic within the development space. Another thing is shifting towards greener solutions, particularly focusing on renewable energy. Yeah, I think that would be apparent as well in the increase with electric vehicle market in Asia, as well as in many parts of Europe and the America. And lastly, workforce development is still a crucial topic that they're looking at in terms of how to address sustainable development goals within each countries. It's one of the things that we see in terms of like thematic area priorities. One of those are the things that we see that will continue within 2025 and beyond. But we have to be cognizant that since the US funding freeze is just one element of it, there are also other economic systems, and economic situations that pushes some of the funding development funding into specific shifts. For example, the Ukraine and Russia war, as well as the Israel and Palestine war, would really shift certain funding streams by certain countries towards that relief effort, or that development effort. So in my personal experience, I think last year we almost won a grant. Assist almost won a grant funded by an Arabian funder. And we were close to it, but we didn't win because they preferred it to give it to a Palestinian-based organization because of the war in Israel and Palestine, which is understandable because that is the priority of the development sector during that time. So I think one of the key things and implications that we need to see is that moving forward, organizations, whether you are an impact organization, incubator, we have to be more up to date with the current trends in the development sector. It gives us space to prepare for the changing environments, and also it gives us leverage as well in seeing what are the risk that we might face. It's a good thing as well that Solomon was able to recount some of his experiences, because we also experienced certain things. We had an opportunity, we were funded as well by a big funder last year. However, due to the funding freeze by the US, the funding was canceled. It's something that we learned, it's a big loss in our organization, but at the same time, it's a learning experience as well. And we understood that, things like grants is also cognizant to the what you call this, the priorities of different countries, different geopolitical statuses, and different relationships that we built upon it. But there is always an opportunity for integration and opportunity to move forward. One of the things that I think I want to highlight is this is also an opportunity for us to shift our focus towards not only just looking at development grants or multilateral and bilateral opportunities. It's also looking at private sector partnerships as a means for us to diversify our funding sources. It's also a means for us to explore newer thematic areas, for as a means for us to create more strategic projects or strategic programs that would align with the current market trends. So maybe just to wrap it up, because I think I have a few minutes left, my advice is really first to reevaluate within your organizations what is in the changing landscape, in the changing development landscape, and the changing markets as well. What is your what is your what you call this? What is your selling point as an organization? How do you want to package your organization towards this changing landscape in a way that would align with the different markets available? Next is to align a better strategic thinking towards partnerships and aligning with the priorities of some of the bilateral and multilateral groups. I would suggest everyone to always attend like networking events with embassies, because it would give you like an idea on what their strategic change would look like, and how, because there would always be development support by bilateral institutions. It's just a matter of knowing how to get into that partnership. Lastly is diversification. So knowing that, we can put our eggs in one basket, because eventually grants is a very volatile revenue stream. So maybe there would be another revenue stream for your organization that you can explore. I think Solomon was able to put it in a better sense, that exploring provision of services for different impact groups is also a thing that we can also do, particularly if the service or the support that doing is something that you can really market to your own countries or even globally. So that's something that you can explore further. Yeah, I think that's it for me. I hope I didn't go over time, Rod, but
No,
yeah, thank you.
perfect timing. Thanks so much, Joshua. Thank you for sharing that. I think it really is truly a reminder from Solomon and now to you that, again, the funding landscape is a very volatile one. It's not the first time we're seeing shifts in priorities or pulling out. It's just a very unique time because, bigger bilaterals or bigger development aids have really pulled out big or majority of their aid from a lot of organizations, and your reminder of keeping abreast for the current priorities, just like green and digital innovation, and also looking into other ways to diversify revenue apart from grants is a great reminder for the group. So thanks for that, Joshua. And then lastly, we have Liz from Small Foundation, so giving us a different perspective again on how maybe funders are thinking about this landscape, right? Where what has Liz heard also about it, and then how can we as organizations who work with funders also leverage this opportunity or this challenge that we're having now. So without further ado, Liz, I'm giving you the floor.
Well, thank you so much. Again, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And thanks to Solomon and Joshua as well for those insights. I thought those were really profound and very useful from my perspective as well. As you've already outlined, I'm going to talk a little bit about a funder perspective, at Small Foundation, we are seeking to support rural business development, as I said in my introduction, and we look at that through the intermediaries that might serve those rural businesses. So we are looking at access to finance and funding flows as part of that. And as I'll talk about as well, we also have our own funders and donors that we think about as well. So I thought I'd touch on a few of those areas. But overall, I think we would really agree that we feel that working on these issues, and certainly our vision, mission and goal, and those of many on this call, really requires us to think about ever-shifting landscapes and emergence overall. So we do feel that there have been some profound shifts for sure, but it's probably a good wake-up call in a way for us to think about how we can navigate emergence, turbulence, and trends overall. And I suppose I was able to access some data through BII and Dahlberg, which I have permission to share today, and I think it's going to be shared in the chat. But essentially, we are looking at and this is just sort of a Dahlberg's view on it, but looking at some profound shifts in ODA out until 2040. We're looking at sort of persistent systemic shifts, not just from USAID and the US announcements, but more broadly. So I think that was a really strong reminder for us as a philanthropic funder that these shifts that we've seen now are here to stay. And again, the Dahlberg data shows that there's some initial impacts that could be seen, particularly on sub-Saharan Africa, where there hasn't been so much diversification in some of the areas and until more recently, but also in particular sectors. So they're highlighting energy access, they're highlighting agriculture, and they're highlighting health. And so again, for us thinking about rural impact, we can see that there are some particularly underserved areas there as well. So I guess just in terms of dialogue within the community, this is just one perspective. This piece of work is just one perspective on what's happening. It's pretty stark. Love to hear from others what they're seeing and hearing about this overall. But I suppose if we look at those assumptions from Small Foundation's perspective, there's never been, more of a reason for us to say, look, we are absolutely passionate about local capital mobilization, around supporting local leaders and building local business ecosystems for the long term to be sustained beyond these top-down exogenous capital flows. And so how can we as a catalytic capital provider, how as we as a philanthropic capital provider really respond to that reality when people are going to be anxious, worried, fearful, and having to make some stark choices, as Solomon outlined as well. I suppose for us, we aspire to have a system strategy, and so think about how we fit in the broader landscape. And that for us has meant that we have made some changes in terms of how we're operating and thinking ourselves. So we are leaning in much more to collaborative approaches. It's always been at the heart of what we do, is wanting to collaborate, but we see the power and strength in that peer learning and insight sharing that both Joshua and Solomon talked about. Networks such as Pollinate Impact for this community. We've also started working with some other funders or investors to think about how we can be part of a more systemic set of approaches over the longer term. So, for example, we have been part of a new collaborative called the Growth Firms Alliance, which our Gideas Foundation, I saw Nikita's on the call, which is fantastic, has been leading, and Small Foundation has joined that to really share information, align, and bring the evidence from the partners we work with to some of these larger funders, hopefully to make the case for why it is important for ODA to be continue to flow, but then also to make sure that those approaches that are funded are more efficient and effective. And we also participate in a group called C3, the Catalytic Capital Consortium. And again, that's looking at where can funders with access to philanthropic capital or with access to other resources, maybe high net worths, maybe diaspora investors and funders as well. How can they reach innovators and systems leaders, such as the folks on this call, to really channel their resources to efficient and effective innovations and solutions across the ecosystem? So we've made some shifts there. We've also invested more in data and learning as well. As a funder, we want to be supporting our partners to really understand what's effective or not, and we realise that that's often an underfunded, under-resourced area as well. So it's very nascent for us at the moment, but we think it's critical as well in terms of how we can acknowledge the funding landscape has changed, but then also make the best use of what resources are available for us all to access. I suppose Rod asked me to think about a little bit about the types of organisations or behaviours or approaches that are standing out a little bit more for us in this environment. And so again, this is just Small Foundation's perspective, but I suppose bringing in that theme around the need for increased efficiency and effectiveness, what we're now looking for as we engage in the market is where can we really be additional as a capital provider. So we're small in our name, but we're small in the funding that we bring. And so we're really looking at opportunities to spark innovation and I suppose be additional in terms of the wider capital picture. So in other words, looking at what will others not fund, or either because they don't want to fund it or they can't fund it because of the mandates around their capital. I've talked about the catalytic capital approach as well. We're also thinking about, well, how can we make sure that the work that we fund and that we engage on, there's evidence and data that emerges from that, either to have a demonstration effect or potentially to learn from the work that's there. And we're also thinking about bringing others along in those experiments or innovations. So part of that is partnership in the actual transactions or the collaborations or the initiatives, but we're also investing in communications to try and share, I suppose, learning as we go around what's effective or not, in the hope that this will unlock more resources for innovators and systems leaders beyond that. And then I suppose we are at the heart of what Small Foundation's doing is we're always thinking about driving sustainability and scale. So thinking about the longer term provision of business development services or funding flows for rural impacting businesses. And so we appreciate that's very tricky. But and part of it is financial, but it's also about building the wider ecosystem in different jurisdictions so that that's effective for the long term. When we think about ESO support, what does that sort of translate to what we look for in practice now? Well, we have shifted a little bit more from looking at individual transactions. We're thinking a lot more around not just what might be the innovative models for a commercially viable entrepreneur support entities, but we're also thinking about concepts around shared service platforms, where they exist or where they could be brought into existence, particularly to serve local entrepreneur support organisations. And then, perhaps not surprisingly, as we're talking today, we are looking to support strategic networks such as Pollinate Impact and others that might be building the wider connective tissue, the social capital, the knowledge capital, as well as that hard-edged information about resource mobilisation as well that's covered by those networks. Again, Rod, you kindly asked me to think about practical tips that one might share around building stronger funding partnerships. And when we talked about this, I'm very hesitant because I know people work incredibly hard and are very effective at building those relationships. And I suppose I just want to acknowledge that, and I wouldn't want people to think that I'm sort of trying to give lessons to anyone really on this call, because I know it's a very dynamic community already, and people are very effective and making very hard choices, as Solomon has already illustrated today. I suppose what works for us is really effective is really thinking about making sure there's just a little bit of research done before engaging in conversations with funders. Things do shift really quickly, and to the extent that you're able to just check in and see where a fund is at is quite important. An example for Small Foundation is we used to be solely a grant funder, and then quite some time ago now we started to do investments and grants, and not surprisingly still, we'll come across people in the ecosystem who don't haven't been aware of that shift, and I'm kind of hoping if you look at our website that is clear. Maybe we need to do more work on that as well, for sure. I always take responsibility for that, but just as seeking funding more broadly, it's just great to just do a little bit of a check-in before engaging. The communication side is really important as well. I think people are very skilled at that. Again, it just is a long-term conversation. Quite often you don't get clarity in the first engagements. We just needs to take a bit of time for folks to get to know each other, because we found, particularly in our work, that often there are maybe special terms, or there are certain types of sort of fashionable bits of language that people might be using at one point or another that mean that people aren't understanding each other well. And so sometimes we just need to invest time in getting to know each other better in that way. And yeah, just paying attention to that social capital. Ultimately, Small Foundation makes a lot of decisions, not having a full set of data, of course, or not, if we're thinking about something that's new or innovative or emergent. And so a lot of that is, comes down to, I suppose, building relationships of trust and understanding between folks. Yeah, I love the suggestion of other speakers around diversification, and yeah, as a funder, I work with my own decision-making processes, and sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't, and it's obviously incredibly disappointing for folks when things don't progress. So it is always good to diversify. I also appreciate that it takes resources to hold many conversations and relationships as well. So that's not easy, but to the extent that it's possible to keep looking to the next horizon and thinking beyond dependence, as Solomon's saying, on one or two funders is fantastic. And I suppose finally I'd just say, be collaborative. Like, we're all here today because we want to be collaborative and we want to share and learn, and we love when we are able to be collaborative with our potential partners, our existing partners, and ecosystem leaders beyond that. It might feel really tough to do that in a very competitive funding environment, but in our experience over the long term, that pays dividends, and hope it would do for those on this call as well. So I'll stop there, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of the conversation today.
Thank you so much, Liz. Thanks for sharing all of that. I think one keyword that I got from all of this was really how collaboration is really important, especially at a time like right now, right? Like, whether that's incubator, funder and funder working together, I think there is much to be said about how we can really help each other, especially at a time like right now, to support the ecosystem in different ways. And I like how you put it earlier about the emergence, turbulence, and trends of the funding landscape, and how, accepting the fact that that is a reality, no matter what timeline we're in. It's just a particularly challenging time right now, but all the more to encourage people to collaborate and to listen to each other. So thank you so much. Thank you to Solomon, Joshua, and Liz for sharing their experiences and insights. We'll have a quick dialogue to get more information from them. And then if any of you from the audience would like to ask questions, please feel free to put it on the chat and we can read it on after the dialogue space. So Aditi, if you can please bring up our slides for this part of the talk, but maybe while you do that, I can start with our first question and to kind of frame it as well. So right now we know that a lot of organizations are struggling and maybe as Solomon put it, the rug was pulled beneath their feet. And so there's really this balance of wanting to survive, but also not letting go of a long-term vision of an organization, right? And um, maybe if you have any insights on how this balance can happen between short-term survival right now and long-term strategy and vision in moments like this. So I know Solomon talked a little bit about this, so maybe we can start with him and then we'll go to Joshua and then Liz closes off if there are any other insights. So Solomon, would you kindly start us off?
Thank you. I am not sure I would have a one-size-fits-all response to this question, but again, maybe one practical example of what we had to do at Reach for Change, and that has stayed with us till date. Yes, these challenges would happen, and so you need to survive whilst you think long term. But in surviving, you also don't have to sell yourself short. Otherwise, you end up deepening your problems. So for instance, what we have done is that we have costed our programs. We know how much it costs us to maintain one staff. We know how much it costs us to run our operations, etc., etc. And so if you are bringing me a project or I'm taking on a project, the minimum amount I can take today within Reach for Change is $15,000, but not a project exceeding 4 weeks. So if you are bringing me a project that I have to execute over a 3 to 6 months period, calling it an incubation, acceleration, capacity building, or whatever, and you are paying me something less than what it cost me to maintain my staff, run my operations, and deliver the impact that you want, then I would walk away from that program. We've had to do that because we realize that, yes, it's good to keep the relationship, but sometimes in doing that, you're also deepening the crisis internally. And at the end of the day, I am answerable to a board. I can't provide responses to them. So you need to find a way. So go back to your operations, look at how much it's costing you to maintain your team, how much it's costing you to deliver your impact, and determine what you can take on and what you cannot take on. So be open to smaller size grants, but it has to make sense. It needs to pay for the survival of the business at the end of the day. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Solomon. So really being cognizant of what what actually survival means, right, for the organization. How much does it actually cost, and whether it's worth it to go for this grant in terms of the effort that it takes, how much it's actually paying, etc. Definitely a great thing to consider for this. Thank you. Joshua, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think Solomon was able to cover a lot with what we are also doing in Assist. So for us, short-term survival and long-term strategy, one thing that we learned through experience is being able to establish KPIs, key performance indicators, so that you would understand which is the task going towards short-term operations and which are tasks going towards long-term operations. And every opportunity that we research in particular, whether it's a grant, a bilateral grant by let's say the Germans or the from UK, or maybe it's a multilateral grant by the UN, you should understand what is the long-term implication of it, regardless of its value. Because for example, if you're going to pursue a grant, it takes up resources, it takes up manpower, it takes up focus. Just to give everyone a specific example that we did. Last year we took up a lot of resources in pursuing USAID applications. I think we pursued there are 10 big applications in the countries that we applied for, and those took a lot of months for us to work, a lot of partnerships, a lot of meetings, and in the end, of course, it didn't amount to anything because all of those were canceled because of the US funding freeze. But being able to understand fully the implication of any partnership, any grant application that you will do is a good thing to understand your long-term strategy. Or, for example, if you're going to pursue a small grant by the Germans, you need to know that, okay, the first step is getting a foot in the door through this grant, and maybe getting bigger contracts or better opportunities through a relationship we built with the embassy, with GIZ, or with DEG. That's a something that we do as well. So establish KPIs and understanding which operations are for short term and which operations goes to the long term strategy.
Thanks. Thank you, Joshua. Great insight also on, clarifying how it affects the performance indicators of an organization, as well as the inherent value versus like the actual value to the organization of a certain grant, right? Like maybe, as Solomon also mentioned, maybe it seems like it's a lot of money, but if you break it down to operational cost and really the amount of effort that it takes to apply for the grant, maybe it really isn't worth it in the long run. So great insight there. Thank you, Joshua. And last but not least, Liz, anything you want to add to the conversation?
Thanks so much. I think it's been really, really well said by the other panelists. I think that's one of the pieces when we go through our due diligence process. That's often people are surprised that we require it and we ask for it. It's having some sort of a financial projection. So in other words, how can you really land this advice concretely that the other panelists have given is, one way is just to make sure that you are doing those projections and managing that actively as a management team or as a leader. And obviously not everybody has sort of in-depth financial modeling skills, but sort of simple budgeting is very powerful. We found and can really bring those insights that my fellow panelists have talked about. So yeah, it's just worth investing the time in that, we found. Even if there are many unknowns, that's kind of part of the picture for sure.
Right. Thanks, Liz. So really a strength in terms of just being future looking, like in terms of projecting these budgets. And it seems to be a strength that's also recognized by funders as well, which can help also with grant applications. So definitely something that a learning for everyone here. Thank you, everyone. Let's move to the next question. So what are some smart pivots or adaptations you've seen organizations make in response to these shifts? So whether that's personal experience from the organizations you are a part of, or ones that you feel like you've seen and really are effective in the ways that they've pivoted the past few months. Maybe if it's okay, we'll start with Joshua this time, and then Liz, and then Solomon to close us off. So Joshua, anytime you're ready.
Yeah. So I think what we've seen, particularly with some of our partners and even us as well, I think I always underscore the importance of diversification. So I'll just mention the term again, which is something very important with the development sector. In the case of Assist, we actually started out, I think 20 years ago, we started out as a very traditional nonprofit organization. The lifeblood of Assist has always been grants, and it has driven our organizations for I think a decade, until we realized during the pandemic that grants is a good funding source. However, we realized that there is a lot of in the market, in particularly with partnerships, corporate social responsibility, partnerships as well, and even some of the services that we provide. Hence, Assist really pivoted in really diversifying some of the funding sources that we had. And even some of our partners are learning from that as well. Some of them from just looking for grants and applications, they explore retail, they explore impact services, they explore providing creative services even, just to also diversify some of their revenue stream. And yeah, I think that's some of the adaptations that I've seen with the changes.
Great. Thanks, Joshua. So diversification of revenue, think beyond grant is really something that I think reflected not just in the conversation now, but even in the insights that three of you shared earlier. I think that's a very important insight. Thank you. Liz?
Thanks so much. Yeah, and I can see that there's some insights in the chat there that are relevant. So thanks, Jonathan was just talking as well about the diversification and what scope there might be for small foundation or others to explore some support there. So I think in answer to the sort of original question is that we haven't seen, I suppose we feel like we're still in the middle of this, and so I don't know that we've seen anyone from our portfolio. So across our portfolio, the direct exposure to, say, the USAID decisions is not significant from small foundations perspective, but of course we see the exposure in terms of the wider ecosystem. So as we all know, if we're seeing those cuts in health and education, for example, that's going to really feed through to the entrepreneurial ecosystems over time. So we're tracking that in the broadest sense, and then looking at these sort of smart pivots or adaptations. We're sort of seeing people, move as quickly as they can really to try and look at other sources of finance as well. And I noticed that Jacob in the chat's also said, are we seeing that any opportunity amongst funders, investors to fill the gap that they've left? So I think. From our perspective, the picture does look really stark. The USAID cut is just so enormous that we don't see that people are going to fill the gap, but we do see that this is a good moment really to look more broadly at other capital providers, not least those who, in our case, when we're looking across the African continent, we've been starting to think about how can we work more collaboratively with some of the local financial institutions around their perceptions of risk for investing in SMEs, or what entrepreneurs, enterprise support needs they're seeing in the businesses they might be supporting, for example. So we've recently gone into some partnerships with a bank in Nigeria and a bank in Sierra Leone to kind of look at this. And I suppose the longer term goal for us there is to unlock local investment capital for SMEs from local financial institutions, where at the moment it feels like the risk perception is a pretty high barrier there. In terms of what Jonathan was talking about, I suppose in terms of thinking about how facilitating that diversification, I think small foundations perspective is, is there scope for platforms like Pollinate Impact or other collaborative spaces to weave some of these conversations or link some of the resources. We are thinking about shared services platforms, open to ideas and concepts around that for sure. Yeah, I suppose we're open to it, but I think the energy and the innovation really needs to come from the leaders in the ecosystem who are seeing these opportunities, because we would be hesitant to know what's required, I suppose, without getting advice and insight from experts such as those on the call. So I'll leave it there. Thanks, Rod.
Thanks so much, Liz. Thank you for highlighting the kind of shift of knowing that there's a responsibility also, right, of trying to help make sure that those who USAID were supporting and now might not are struggling with acquiring funding and working with local organizations, funding organizations as well. I've seen some conversations around it in Southeast Asia as well, where funders work with more local family foundations, for example, like those based in Japan and Thailand, for example, now being more involved as well in social impact work and funding that. So definitely pivot or adaptation we're seeing evolve as we speak. Thank you. Solomon, to close us off for this.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Liz and Joshua. I think you've done enough justice to this. But again, I would cycle this back to another scenario that Reach for Change had to deal with. Or so for some of us, these things were, long coming. It's head much earlier. For instance, when the issue between Ukraine and Russia happened, we had to take another hit, a really big hit. We're implementing some projects across the Africa region funded by CEDA, that's a Swedish International Development Agency. And overnight, CEDA wrote to us and said that, look, we are getting this influx of refugees from Ukraine. And so we are having to make a 40% cut in some of our budgets to support Ukrainian refugees. And I had a 4-year project being funded by CEDA, and we're in the middle of this project and funding was going to be cut by 40%. So things like this every now and then happen. Sometimes we tend to think that we are very detached from the global political system and other macroeconomic situations, but depending on the scale of your operations and the size of your markets and areas where you operate, you need to be mindful and aware of some of these things. And so, yes, on that project, we had to revise our targets, numbers, impact goals. A few stuff had to be laid off here and there and stuff like that. But what have we done subsequent to this? As part of our adaptation process, we have this annual convenience that we now undertake in all Reach for Change countries called Partnering for Change, where you bring together in one room all the key stakeholders in the ecosystem. So from funders to entrepreneurs, impact investors, and what have you, across the value chain, to just dialogue on things that are happening, showcase your impact, let them also tell you what changes or plans are coming up and how you can tap into that. How do we all work that? Because we are working towards a common goal. We don't see other incubators and accelerators as competition. Rather, how do we partner to create change? Because the problems out there are enormous, And so one way to do this is not just about diversifying your income sources, but also collaborate and partner with like-minded institutions, where you all leverage on each other's strengths to achieve that common goal, especially where you have shared vision and your mission is also aligned. So I think that is something we're beginning to see in some of the markets where some of these organizations are now having to fall on local partners and governments. Some governments are setting up, especially in Africa, where aid had been a big deal, to say that, if this is happening with the USAID, we need to begin to look at how we address some of these issues. In Ghana, you have a whole ministry dedicated to entrepreneurship and small and medium scale enterprises. And so government themselves are piping funding to ESOs to implement projects at a grassroots level and stuff like that. So I think the adaptation is required both at the national level and also at the micro level where incubators and ESOs are also operating. So it's about diversification and partnerships.
Absolutely. Thanks, Solomon. That's a really great point on partnerships and collaborating with each other, not seeing it as competition, but really an opportunity also to connect with each other and collaborate and seeing the bigger picture of, us trying to support the ecosystem to thrive. And this is definitely a time when it's not just an option, but it's actually like kind of required for us to do it so that we can all survive this. So thank you. We're down to our last question. I did wonder if it reflected, but to move on, yes. So to kind of sum us up this dialogue space with a little bit more positivity, right? I want us to kind of think of like one thing that gives us hope or energy in this space right now. If we think about it, what is something, the opportunity that we have that we can hold on to while we're facing kind of challenging times. We'll start with Liz, then we'll go to Joshua, and then end with Solomon to close this off. So anytime you're ready, Liz.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I think what really energizes us and really gives us hope and energy is the strength and resilience of what's already happening across the African continent, and the, I guess, creativity and innovation that we're already seeing in many jurisdictions across the continent as well. So I suppose as we look back over the last few years, we see that exogenous shocks are ongoing, and still there is so much that's thriving and prospering, and indeed, we have kind of more opportunities than we can handle really when we're looking at what's happening in the market. So we know we're going through changing times, but we feel that there is every indication that the focus now can be more than ever on those African leaders, innovators, and finance providers who really want to strengthen the SME ecosystem across the continent.
Thank you, Liz. So seeing these creative collaborations and innovations within the local market is definitely giving us hope and energy right now. Thank you for that. Joshua?
I think what gives me hope and energy in this space right now is the way that we innovate, the way that we adapt to this situation will really reach new heights towards something that we haven't seen before. I'm a fan of paradigm shifts would always be an opportunity for us to really change the way we think about things, change the way that we do things, really address the stagnation at certain points. And while it is harrowing and it's scary because there are a lot of changes, there are a lot of layoffs, but I want to see this as an opportunity for us to innovate and to reach new heights with the development sector. And I know there are new things will come, new innovations will come, new AI, new technologies, new social interventions will come from this experience itself. So yeah, I think that's really what gives me hope right now.
Thank you so much, Joshua. And I love how you put it, how, this is really an opportunity now for us to really think about. And it does also make me hopeful and energetic that there's this opening now to see things in a different way, seeing the future, an opportunity for us to change in a way that presents more positive effects later on. And definitely there's more people who are now reflecting on what's happening, and hopefully we'll carry it out with an even brighter future. Thank you. Solomon?
Thank you. I think I share similar sentiments with Joshua. It's about the opportunity to collaborate. That gives me a lot of hope, and also the opportunity to innovate, given these challenges that are happening. There's this Indian philosophy that stuck with me called Jugaad, where you innovate out of lack, rather than seeing that as a problem. I think that the problems across the continent of Africa and even globally are enormous. There's a lot. So funders would definitely be seeking opportunities to address these problems. And the existence of incubators and other ESOs also means that there's always going to be an opportunity to collaborate and tap into some of these resources to address some of the impact goals that we all seek to achieve. And so for me, the fact that funders are coming around to discuss other forms of addressing the challenges that we are facing, I think it's good. And the fact that even networks like this exist for us to collaborate and judge all is also something that gives me hope and energy, knowing that there are like-minded people out there, like-minded organizations out there seeking to achieve one common goal. Yeah. Thank you.
So what a great way to end our dialogue space. Thank you so much to our speakers and their insights on all this. Definitely, if anything, today that's a proof that collaboration among different stakeholders and the insights that we bring can really be complementary and effective in helping us navigate these shifting funding landscapes and hopefully get out for the better, right? With new partners, with new innovative collaborations together. And so we're really thankful for three of you for being here today with us. And we're not done yet. We want to also know about all of you, of course, and see if you have any questions. I know some of them were already answered by while we were doing our dialogue space, but in case um, you still have any more questions, we have room for maybe one or two. You can put it on the comments or you can raise your hand and then we can take it from there. So just giving space for that. Right. I don't think there are any more questions in the room. Thank you so much. So um, we have about 15 minutes left, and I know mural is a little bit challenging to navigate. So maybe what I'll do is just put our kind of reflection questions and exchange questions on the chat. And then if what we can do is, if you can reply to it as a thread so that we can see. So the first question that I'd like to pose for us in the room is, what resonated most from the speaker's insight today? So anything that jumped out for you, what you can do is reply to this question here, and so that we can see a thread of all of these amazing insights that we've learned from today's discussion. I will carry it on to the next question as well. So here, what's one belief or assumption about funding that you're rethinking after this session? So after today, after what Solomon, Joshua, and Liz shared, or even all the participants in the comments, what's one belief about it that you're rethinking after this session? And then next question, maybe in terms of your own shifts, right, in your organizations, and we want to learn also from what you've all done. What's one shift or experiment your organization is trying to adapt to the new funding landscape? So something that you feel like is you're trying out right now, maybe you haven't had a chance yet to see if it's effective or not, or if you have, then that would be great. So something that we're curious to see. And then just lastly, of course, as a network, we'd want to support those in the room. What kinds of support tools or collaboration would help maybe not just incubators, but everybody here to stay resilient right now? So we know that it still is a tough time. We know we're looking forward, more hopeful, but maybe in terms of how we can support everyone here to stay resilient, what are the kinds of support or tools, or maybe collaborations that would be important for us to do right now? I see some of those in the insights. Co-creation, partnership, collaboration, foresight. I love seeing the word collaboration. One size does not fit all, correct. Different contexts will call for different solutions. Financial projections seem to be the main factor in terms of funding feasibility. If being aware of that. Thank you, Risper, for your kind comment. Jacob mentions for the supporter tools, more encouragement for them to join incubator programs. So I'm assuming this is helping social enterprises, right, in this challenging time. Thanks for sharing that. Anything else? You can also unmute yourself if there's anything that you'd like to share to the room. Definitely open to hearing some voices from the participants. So if you're willing to come on screen and share a little bit, we'd love to hear from you as well. Kat, for focus on survival today, but keep an eagle eye on the horizon. That's definitely great. Kat mentioned mentoring, definitely something that's very important to help support organizations in this current time. Nikita shared her favorite quote is a Samian proverb that says, when the bush is on fire, the chameleon must abandon its slow walk, meaning that what we've known is changing and changing fast. We need to start thinking out of the box. Definitely. The landscape is changing. This is only the tip of the iceberg. So awesome. Collaboration is very important right now. Long-term strategy needs to be maintained when it comes to funding, but with short-term plans in place, with KPIs in place as well. More strategic partnerships as a tool, definitely. Tools and collaboration. So really a need for more spaces like this, right? For us to be able to learn from each other. Miguel is asking for books to read as an aspiring social entrepreneur. If anybody has any recommendations, you can reply to Miguel on the chat to help them out. But thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. You can still keep on sharing on the chat, but while we do that, I will just quickly bring up our feedback form. Your feedback will definitely help us improve our sessions. That let us know how the session also went for you. And of course, if you're willing to give us more detailed feedback, because this is short 11 question form. And while you work on the feedback form, I can also read some more responses on the chat. Crisper mentioned supporting underrepresented founders or solving locally relevant challenges, right? Being able to address both local context and underrepresented groups can definitely be important. Thank you for those who submitted their feedback. Really grateful. While we give time for our participants to maybe answer the feedback form or share more of their insights on the chat, just wanted to check in with Solomon and Liz and Joshua if they have any last kind of insights or thoughts that they'd like to share. Maybe say a quick thank you to the group as well. So let's start how we began. So Solomon, you can start us off, and then Joshua, and then Liz to close us off your final messages. Solomon?
I'll say collaborate, don't compete. Thank you.
Thank you. Short but sweet. Thanks, Solomon. Joshua?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to be able to share some of our experiences as well as insights. Just last insight that I would like to say is, I think just reiterating what we wanted to do. This is an opportunity for us to innovate, to diversify, and to really make change that's even beyond that we imagined a year ago or 2 years ago. So I hope that we take it as that and we learn from this experience as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Joshua. And to close us off, Liz?
I would absolutely say amen to Solomon and Joshua's points. And also, I suppose what I'm looking at the chat, I'm loving the feedback and the sharing of resources there. Something that we found and seen is that ultimately your peer-to-peer engagement and network, reflecting on that point about collaboration and that's already been made is so critical. So I hope folks can continue to do that through Pollinate Impact and beyond. And yeah, look forward to seeing you out there. Please be in touch if we can collaborate.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Solomon, Joshua, and Liz for sharing your time with us today and all your experiences. It's definitely been a great conversation. And thank you, everybody, for being so open and engaging today. This is a really great session. And again, it just proves our point of there being more hope and energy really in the space now and more collaboration opportunities coming up. So hopefully this is not the last time we'll see the people here in the room, and we hope to see you in our next sessions and as well as other collaborative opportunities coming up. So thank you again, and I'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much, Rod.
Thanks, Liz.
Bye.
Bye. Jonathan, definitely. We will be sending an email with the YouTube link as soon as we have it up. So yes, we'll do that over chat, over email, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for joining today.